5 years. Please welcome to the stage Sheila Kanani!
Thanks, Steve. When you were talking about sexual harassment of yourself, I thought you meant you were masturbating.
Sexual assault of myself.
Okay, fair enough. So, as Steve has said, I've done the breaking thing.
Dear.
It wasn't me.
Slides on our computer, Sheila.
I sent them to Steve on an email. I can do it without. It's not a problem.
Sorry.
That's okay. We don't need this then. They were funny, but you know. Okay, so I'm just going to give him evils now. No. Yeah. Okay. So I have known Steve a long time. I haven't been pregnant this whole time. I know this is Steve's testimonial, but I can't really thank him for this. Unfortunately, he's not the dad, so my whole set is not about Steve. Sorry.
Unfortunately is the key word.
That was a slip of the tongue. Okay, so I am an astrophysicist. This is no moon. In case those of you at the back can't see, it's the Death Star. It's also a pregnant belly, which means I'm an astrophysicist that got laid. That's a pretty big deal, really. You know, all these other nerds and geeks out there, you know, your chance will come eventually. So it's all good. It's all good. Steve's not the dad. The dad's actually a solar physicist, so we must be expecting a son. We are expecting a son, not like a bright shiny one. I do wonder what kind of son he's going to be. You know, there's lots of different types of stars, so he could be a brown dwarf like his mum. He could be a red giant like his dad. I won't make him stand up, but when he does, you'll see which one I'm talking about. It's quite a feat of engineering, actually. A small Indian spacecraft has been successfully docked by a very large British space probe. That's why they call it the International Space Station, I suppose. So it's all good. Being pregnant, I'm 6 months pregnant, so I've still got more than 2 weeks left. Thank God I'm not going to give birth on the floor here. In case of any of you watch One Born Every Minute, it's not very pleasant by the looks of it. But anyway, being pregnant is very similar to being a PhD student who is writing their thesis. And I'll tell you why. The thesis brain and pregnancy brain makes you forget everything and not remember words and not being able to count, and then you've got the acid reflux, you put on weight, you can't sleep, and it makes sense that they're very similar because if you think about a thesis, you have the seed of an idea, and then you do lots of experimentation. It was more fun for this. You conceive your ideas, and then you nurture it for 40 weeks or more, and then you give birth to a 9-pound tome. Let's just hope that labour is not as painful as my PhD Viva was, because that wouldn't be pleasant. The only real main difference between PhDs and pregnancy is the touching. Thankfully, I suppose. Right now, people seem to think they can come up to me and touch me below my belly button and say things like, "Isn't it huge? Isn't it hard?" Now, if you went up to another astrophysicist and touched them down below and said, "Isn't it huge? Isn't it hard?" you'd either end up with a slap in the face or a £5 note. Most of them are men, in case you don't know. So those are the differences. Being a physicist, I don't know that much about the biology of pregnancy, but I do know that dogs actually do it doggy style. So big up to them. We can use physics to explain a bit of pregnancy though. For example, your centre of mass changes because of the lump on your front, there's the ultrasound scans, there's all that kind of stuff. I was going to show you an actual published paper which was called something like the 3D modelling of it was like the physics of a 3D model of a pregnant genetic envelope, and the abstract was something like, I was going to read it off the screen, but you know, the abstract was something like, in this paper we take a generic human female form we mutate the 3D model of her to make a pregnant version, and then we do like loads of tests. So it was a computer programming paper, but it was really, really strange. Anyway, I didn't understand it, but you know, physics can help us understand pregnancy. Quantum physics even joined up with homeopathy of all the things. There's a whole website about quantum physics and homeopathy, and it says things like, what if quantum physics could help you give birth? What if? I don't know, really. And then my favourite, you'll have to look it up because you can't see the slides, but my favourite was on babyandbump.com, so it wasn't a physics website, but this poor woman, she was called Pink Diamond, she posted on June the 10th going, calling all physics, please, I need your help. Can you tell me, when will I get pregnant? The next day, she posted just one word, anyone? 2 days later, please, anyone, I'm desperate, can you tell me, am I going to get pregnant? 5 excruciating days later, this woman replied, you need to Google Gail, baby psychic, not physics, if you want to have a reading. I'm sure she was American, but... so, basically, the moral of that story is that physics can help us understand pregnancy, but biology is a more fun way of getting pregnant. So, I'm an astrophysicist and a pregnant one, in case you haven't noticed. And so really what I want to talk about tonight is, can you get pregnant in space? And obviously, in order to get pregnant in space, you need to be able to have sex in space. And the alien films have told us that in space, no one can hear you scream. But my question tonight is, in space, can anyone hear you cream? It was not even a geek joke, it's just gross. You don't want to see the slide for that, I suppose. Okay, so I'm going to describe to you 5 reasons why it's very, very difficult to get pregnant in space. The human body isn't adapted to weightlessness in any way, shape or form yet. So 5 of the ways, starting with number 1. In space, it's very, very hard to get an erection, pardon the pun. A lack of gravity in a zero-G environment means that your blood goes around your body in a different way, and it tends to pool in your head and your chest, not down where it's needed. And that is true for men and women, so it would be difficult to get an erection in space, full stop, whether you were male or female. Number 2, sex in space would be very tiring. It's any kind of strenuous activity is difficult in space because your heart has to beat in a different way. Well, it still beats in the normal way, but it's harder for it to beat in a zero-G environment, and your muscles start to degenerate. So any kind of sexual activity is difficult. Number 3, Newton's laws, in particular Newton's 3rd law. For every action there is an opposite and equal reaction. So you've got your 2 astronauts. They've done all their experiments for the day. They're bored. They've got 3 hours. Every single day they have to do 3 hours of physical activity. So they use this for 30 seconds, a minute, however long it takes them. They engage in coitus. I love that word. I don't even know if it's a real word or if it's a Sheldon word, but they engage in coitus. But due to Newton's 3rd law, no matter what position they do it in, they're going to end up colliding against the sides of the spaceship. So it's doable, but it's not exactly fun. Number 4, this is my favourite. So in a zero-G environment, liquids tend to pool into bubbles at the location of secretion. So you're having sex in space, it's a sweaty affair. Your sweat starts to pool into balls under your arms, wherever else it's formed. If the pools get big enough, they glob off and float about the spacecraft, which is almost okay, except sweat isn't the only liquid made during sex. I'm going to leave that one there. Number 5. So it's possible to have sex in space, but gravity has got a massive impact on conception, fertilization, cell development, organ development, brain development, behavior, etc. So whilst it's possible to have sex in space, we really don't know what the babies will turn out like. So that is in my opinion, probably the most difficult thing about having sex in space, and I don't want to be the one to kind of donate myself to that kind of scientific experiment. So, yeah, it can be kind of scary having sex in space with the globs floating about. There are more fun ways of having sex in space. There's something called the two-suit that was designed to facilitate intimacy and aid procreation in space. Its tagline is "One small step for man, one giant leap for humankind in colonising space." So this is shocking colonisation. It's basically a flight suit with a massive flap on the front and lots of Velcro. So you can stick yourself to another person, or you can stick yourself to the bed or the kitchen table, or whatever takes your fancy. It's got some harnesses inside, so you can make the other person closer to you, or you can use the harnesses for like 50 Shades of Grey play, whatever. My favourite thing about the two-suit is that it was actually designed to be able to stick 2 or more people together during sex in space. And it did Google it exists. It sounds a lot nicer than the 1989 NASA idea of elastic belts and inflatable tubes. Don't know what they had in mind there. But according to a Russian scientist, we shouldn't need anything, because after a prolonged period of weightlessness, human beings should be able to adapt to having sex in space without any special devices. So Ann Summers really doesn't need to send rabbits into space anytime soon. So that's good, rabbits. Taking it to the next level, because globs of sex liquids aren't bad enough. There have been some pornos, not shot in space, but shot as if they were in space. There was the Uranus Project, Part 3. They filmed it on a vomit comet. So the vomit comet is a modified aeroplane that flies in parabolas, and on the downward parabola you get 20 seconds of 0G at a time. The actors said it was logistically and technically challenging, but they were glad that neither of them got flight sick. And then there's Pornhub. Don't pretend you don't know what Pornhub is. They did start a crowdfunding project in order to raise $3.5 million so that they could actually make a porno in space. They had to stop at 236,000 because they didn't get enough pledges. But if you had pledged on projects like on parts of the project, like the Apollo 69 pledge, what you would have got is genuine. This is genuine. I didn't make this up. If you pledge $150,000 for the Apollo 69, you would have got, after they came back, you would have got the sextronauts' flight suits, complete with used underwear. If that takes your fancy for $150,000. Even Arthur C. Clarke got in on the matter. I don't mean he had sex in space, but he had something to say about it when he was alive. He said that he was particularly worried about the distracting effects of weightlessness on boobs and how they'd float about in space, rendering fellow spacemen completely unable to do their job. I wonder if Arthur C. Clarke was friends with our very own Tim Hunt, #distractingly sexy. So to finish, you've heard about the trials and tribulations of sex in space, and if it still floats your boat, if you still want to be probed by E.T.'s little finger, just remember, in order to be, well, if you want to join the Mile High Club in space, but if you want to join it as an astronaut, you'll actually have to join the 50 Mile High Club. So thank you very much.
More time for Sheila Kanani. So